Yes, let's get stuck into it. Welcome to the Game Club, the fourth Game
Yes.
Club.
Yes, the
Yeah,
fourth one.
cool, cool, cool. Um, shall we start?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. But how do we start this? Do we have a? Oh, we do. Sorry, we have a
Yeah,
thing.
I'm
Yeah,
just
I
waiting
was
for
like,
you to
oh,
read the
I can see
script.
I'm meant to do the thing. All right, cool, cool. All right, quiet, everyone. Quiet, please. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the Doof Game Club, Doof Media's exploration of the joy of play. I'm Ruben Morehouse.
And I'm Elliot Diebold.
Outer Wilds. That's the game we're talking about today. Um, shall we talk about it? I mean, it's a game created by a studio called Mobius Digital. Pretty fun game. We're going to be doing heavy spoilers here because you kind of have to talk about this game, I think.
Yeah.
So if this is a game that you feel like you're going to want to play, go do it. I mean, it's what 15 hours or so of an experience. It's worth it. It's great. And yeah, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to play it, then you'll be fine. We'll spoil it all. But
But yeah, if this is a game where knowing the ending and talking about some of the puzzles we're going to talk about will ruin the experience. So if you think you might play it and you haven't yet, don't listen to this.
yeah, definitely. Sorry, I was just shutting a window that was getting some noises in it. That's fine. Shall we begin?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So, what are we going to talk about first, Elliot? We're going to talk about the. I mean, it makes sense. This is a game that's all about time, so it makes sense that we're going to kind of talk about it chronologically, I guess. um, the first thing I want to talk about here, this is a clip from the very start of my very first stream, which was basically just running around the village, right? So
Yeah.
this game starts and you don't even really know that it's going to be about exploring planets. I mean, it says you're going to go into space, so I guess you should know that. But really, the start of this game is you're just kind of exploring this village. And I found this to be such a creative and great tutorial, right? Like, um, just
Yeah.
the way that this game introduces you, each little vignette that you have here is a tutorial on a different aspect that you kind of realize you're going to be applying in your ship later on. And it just feels like so lively and great.
Yeah, it's an interesting line they had to walk though, because like after I finished this tutorial, like for the rest of the game, I reckon I spent 99% of the game in the spacesuit. Like I never had to move outside of the spacesuit, and so there is like this weird disconnect between the tutorial and the whole rest of the game for me, in that the movement was fundamentally different.
Really,
In
but you're not really flying around most of the time you're exploring, right? Like
Well,
the movement's
maybe it's
not
just the way
that
I
different.
played.
What
I
were
was.
you flying around in your space in your suit much?
Yeah, like constantly.
Why? I think that happened
It's
to me maybe
faster.
one time. It's
Um,
Elliot. It's not faster. How can you say that? That's insanity.
it is. But like, I mean, I get it as well, because at the same time, like, if they gave you the spacesuit in this village, I reckon at least 50% of players would just jetpack out of the village
Well, they let you explore it in one of the
in that
caves.
cave. Yeah.
But the things that I'm really talking about are, it teaches you about the idea of taking photos with that satellite, and that's kind of the first one you naturally hit. And I
Yeah.
didn't even realize that was a tutorial for something that is going to happen
Yes.
until later, right? By the time you get to the second one, it's like, oh, you've got this signal scope and go find the people who are playing hide and seek. I was like, okay, cool, this is a tutorial. But at the start, it just felt like I was exploring some really cool tech in this village, and that was awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
I really like that, because you're right. Like something like the hide and seek game is more like obtusely like a tutorial,
yes,
whereas the like just checking out the satellite, you're like, oh, this is neat, and then later when you
yeah.
get your scout, you're like, oh,
Oh,
okay.
that's what this was teaching, right? And
Yeah.
you learn about the basics of the ship control with the really hard model ship that felt
Yes.
way harder to fly than the actual ship.
That will
Uh,
come up later.
there's you find out a bit about the ghost matter and that it's really deadly. You find
Yeah.
out about your kind of uh, like flight controls in your spacesuit from that cave, like, and repairs as well are in there. It just feels like a very elegant tutorial and one where, and I'm actually kind of sad about this. I didn't come back to the village ever after the first run. I don't know if there's anything here to find, but I didn't come back much.
I came back a couple of times, but they were all brief, because yeah, there was nothing else to do there really. Like I think once you've
Yes.
done it, you're done.
it really struck me with the world. This village really felt alive, and it really set up this interesting contrast to how not empty, but like devoid of life the rest of the universe is.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we'll talk about that again later too. But that you're right, that was intentional. I think this place feels like a home, and the rest of the universe or the rest of the solar system is like intentionally barren. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and it like so it sets up this really cool, like you're right, like the village is very captivating for your first loop as you're learning all the mechanics and like yeah, it's just it's funny how, because I didn't know about the spacesuit, like I thought this was a different game to what it was, so like I kept climbing places looking for secrets. I probably lost about 20 minutes to like trying to climb up trees and shit looking for like like heart pieces basically, because this
Yeah.
reminded me
Yeah.
of like a
Breath of
Zelda
the Wild.
starting
Yeah.
village.
Totally.
So I was looking for the secrets, and then like I got the spacesuit, and it was just kind of like, oh wow, I really wasted all of that time. Like I could have jetpacked up that tree in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. And I realized I didn't connect this until I was going through this footage later, but I didn't actually leave the village until about 40 minutes in. So the first, loop of my game was actually, 60 minutes or something. And
Right.
it led to this really, I had a lot of space to explore this tutorial. And it was great. It was just like a very fun way to be introduced to the game and the world. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you want that time pressure on the tutorial. Like, it's
No.
great for the rest of the game, but I think for the tutorial, it was right. Because I had the same thing. I think my first loop would have been at least 40 minutes, because it took me 20 minutes in the village at least.
Yeah.
Um, and like dying halfway through that would have just felt really shit, and I would have been like, oh my god, like, and now
Like,
I have
what the
to,
hell is happening?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't even know the sun exploded until my 12th loop, I think. I had two times where I died to the supernova, but I didn't know that's what it was because it was just like I was in a building and suddenly everything turned blue and I was like, "Oh,
oh,
what?"
end of the loop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's funny. I think it was my third session when I saw a supernova. I always killed myself before,
Yeah.
like, just the way I play. I was too aggressive, and I always died before I had an opportunity to see the supernova.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, you're right. Like, I think the game has like a brilliant start. It just maybe like I keep latching onto that one little thing where the fact that the movement felt different to me in the tutorial to the rest of the game. I managed to mislead myself about how the controls worked. But yeah,
Interesting. Yeah. So shall we
yeah,
dive into the next steps? This is just I really like the introduction to the game, I guess.
yeah. I agree. It's fantastic.
Well, actually, I have one more thing I want to touch on here, actually, which is this bit that's on screen now, where I was started like exploring this tower, and you get to the tree. Actually, I think it was a little bit later. You get to that tree that's just a little bit away, and kind of exploring with your signal scope. It so effectively sets up the idea of like, um, I'm going to start poking around with my signal scope and find all these secrets. You hear the
Yeah,
people playing their music, and you hear about Feldspar, who plays, I can't remember, the harmonica. Is
yeah,
Feldspar's?
yeah,
And I at least heard that in the village, and I was like, wait, I thought he was missing. And so it was this immediate thing of like, this person, I know that I can find this person out there, and everyone thinks he's missing. And I've already immediately got this, oh shit, I've got something to do, which was great.
yeah, yeah. I agree. And I want to talk about the signal scope and the camera later as well.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, I'll roll this next clip.
Yep. This is another just kind of background clip to play while we talk over it, I think.
Okay, okay. Oh, is this
Um,
is this where you chased over the probe?
this was after I chased the rope,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Me flying back.
I think that's been quite a universal experience. Is everyone fairly early on in the game chases down the probe, and then you
Well,
get there and they're like, "What does this do?"
yeah, how do I get in? Yeah, because like it's the thing that you see. Like it's the very first thing that you see in the game every time, every
Yeah,
loop. It's this probe exploding and something flying off. And you're like, oh, what's that thing that's flying off?
yeah, yeah,
Which was they want you to think, but they don't want you to be like, I'll chase it in my spaceship, which is obviously what everyone's gonna do.
yeah, yeah. I think they probably should have included something in there, because as far as I've heard, it's a pretty universal experience that people in our club have gone out there and been like, "Wait, there's nothing
Yeah.
here."
Yeah, but you get the beautiful achievement when you use the signal scope facing back towards Earth, at least.
That's true.
Um,
Oh, and I mean, like,
so
I still learnt stuff on that loop. Like, when I got out there, that was when I noticed that all the stars were going supernova and that the whole universe was dying.
oh, is that? I didn't even notice that. I mean, I knew it from the end when I saw the planets dying, but
Yeah.
I
Oh, no,
didn't
yeah, if
saw
you
the
stay
stars
out here
disappear.
long enough,
You see stars
all the
disappear.
suns are disappearing. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I do in this one is I do my autopilot. This is what I learned here was trust your autopilot because I set my autopilot to fly me back, and then it started firing the retro rockets when I was still like 100 kilometers out,
And
and I
you're
was
like, oh,
like,
this
"What
is
the-
too soon.
come on, yeah, exactly." And then I fly in, and then I overshoot by about another 100 kilometers and very nearly fly into the sun. We'll see that shortly. The thing I wanted to talk about here was the how well this game cultivates an atmosphere. I mean, there's no atmosphere in space, but you know what I mean. How well it cultivates a vibe.
Hey.
A like the ability of this game to cultivate this vibe of exploration and mystery and discovery, like it's masterful in that, right? Like this is the thing.
Yes.
It really is exceptionally good at putting together this atmosphere of there is this incredible packed universe of stuff to explore.
Yeah, I think I often hold up like some of the Metroid games as having the best atmosphere of any game I've played. Like those games are designed to make you feel isolated and alone, and they
Mm,
absolutely kill it at doing that. Um, this game's sort of right up there. Like there's such a
yeah.
sense of dread and melancholy. To oh wait, here we go. Sorry, I just want to just want to see
Am I
you
gonna
hit the
yeah,
sun.
get ready for it. Here it comes.
Oh, you're
Well,
just gonna miss it.
yeah, if you turn on the audio, I'm basically at this point going, oh, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, and then I just miss it. So good times. Very
Yeah.
close.
Oh, sorry, but yeah. Like I think there's such a melancholic and um, I don't know, kind of just empty feeling to the world. Like you're sort of
Yeah,
exploring it, but there's this real sense of like things have passed here. I
yeah,
don't know. Yeah,
definitely.
it's just you're right. It's such a strong atmosphere. Like this game really just felt. I always felt so immersed in this solar system.
Yeah, and that is the point of the game, right? The point of the game is it wants you to feel like you're an archaeologist going around figuring out what happened to the Noma.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and yeah, it does it very well, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, to sort of extend from that, this next slide, I'll just play this clip first.
Oh,
So this
hello.
is me on the Quantum Moon, for my first trip. Just found the tower. Yep. Does that turn the lights off? Oh fucking! Can I use this room? Yes. I can use this room to travel around. Recall the rule of quantum entanglement. I don't think I know that one. Recall the rule of the sixth location. That was the North Pole one. Okay. I feel like I'm... So I think the thing I wanted to talk about here, so I'm just going to mute. Is that the cave on past Ember? Elliot? The thing I really wanted to talk about here is how strong the visual language of this game is, and this ties into the atmosphere, obviously. It ties into a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about, how well this game is built, but like the fact that I was just able to walk into this tower, like, you know, about halfway through my playthrough, and just instantly grok like what these things were depicting, like these murals, how this tower worked. Like, you know, I instantly got, oh, those are the pictures of all the planets, and oh,
Yeah.
I'm moving around. Like there were very few times in this game where I wasn't clear what something did or whether it was interactable.
Yeah. Yeah, the iconography in this game and the design of it is so effective at letting you piece things together um, in a way that you really do gain this competence, right? Like these icons of like the brittle hollow icon, right? It's
Yeah.
something that I just thought was nonsense for the first hour or two of the game, but you start learning like, oh, this is what this is referencing, and it lets you start to piece together even more information about things, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well,
this is a message being sent from the Ash twins to Brittle Hollow, or what does that imply?
yeah, yeah. Like, I got into the high energy lab very early on. And in between was like the first planet I went to. So I
Right?
got to that bit, and they've got the pictures of the towers and where
The
they all
towers,
go.
yeah,
And I was like, I don't understand this at all because it was all icons of the planets. And because I hadn't been to them, I didn't get it. And it was like, once I was going to those planets, then I was just able to fly over the towers. And I'm like, oh, well, that's obviously the sun one. That one's, Brittle Hollow. It looks like Brittle Hollow. Like this one looks like Timberhearth. Like it's,
yeah.
you're right. Like there's a consistency. And I think like when I was watching the credits yesterday when I finished the game, there was someone credited as just being the artist for Nomai Technology.
Mm,
And I was like, yeah, like I can see that. Like they were dividing the artists up, like having someone just be like, you're in charge of making everything that needs to look like it came from the Nomai look like it comes from the Nomai. And I think
yeah,
it's that sort of thinking that led to this game having such a great visual language.
yeah, definitely. And it's the kind of thing that you don't really notice that much, but the way that you're able to kind of build an internal map of the places, but also kind of the concepts, and they all start
Yes.
to very easily tie together in a way that is this, internal map that you can reference. It works really, really well in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. So I'll
Um,
play this next slide. That's yours.
yep.
So this is no audio again.
Oh, put on the audio for this one, I think. Oh no.
Uh, so is this your first time learning that the giant steep
It
things
is. Yes.
drop out for a bit?
Yeah. The, it's this. Oh God.
Man.
What?
Bro is so cool about it.
I know. But like, you play this game and you have context of this is how games work, and this is the limitation that games have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you play this game and you get to moments like this where all of a sudden your planet has like shot an island into space, or Brittle Hollow, you land on a piece of rock and something lands next to you, and you're like, oh, what was that? And then suddenly you're falling into a black hole, and then you get teleported somewhere, and you're like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you have these moments where you just realize, like, this game just does really incredible things every so often. It leads you to just have these moments of holy shit so frequently.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like,
Yeah,
we're going to talk a lot later about how there's this, how brilliant the game is at building a sense of you being like an investigator. Um,
yes,
but that you're right. Like a huge part of that is like I love you calling them moments of wonder because there are just so many bits where you're just like doing something in the game and you're like, what happens if I do this, or something just happens to you and like it just blows your mind. You're like, whoa, and especially because then
yeah,
there'll often be ramifications. Like the first time you warp, you'll be like, ooh, okay, like can I
yeah.
do this
Now a
with
whole
that?
new
Yeah.
aspect of my train of thought has opened up, right?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Um, it, but just like there was, I think maybe the first, and this is a surprisingly large amount, like the first half of the game, maybe I felt like I was constantly discovering new tricks and new cool things, and every one of them I would be like, oh, holy shit,
Mm,
right?
mm.
Like it just is so jam packed full of incredible stuff to discover.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
I
Um,
yeah, yeah. Well, in fact, that actually kind of leads perfectly into this next slide,
hmm,
which I just sort of had playing here. I just wanted to talk about like the map and the structure of this game because like one
yeah,
of the first things I want to touch on is the idea of having it be like a group of planets didn't hit me until about halfway through, but I was like, what a great way to pocket your content
yes,
in a way, like so to compare it to like other games where it'll be like, a landscape and there's like, oh, a couple of cities, or this is the cave section, this is the tall mountain, so it has snow on it. But it feels kind of arbitrary, like where these lines are drawn and why these mechanics only work in certain places. The idea that you can have just little pockets of content in the planets that are sort of self-contained or integrated as much as you like. I was just like, oh, it's genius.
Yeah. And I love that it lets them be so different, right?
Yes,
Like
exactly.
it lets them feel so different. And each planet has a gimmick, right? Like but I don't even want
Yes.
to call it a gimmick because it's these gimmicks are they add a whole new dimension to each planet, but they're not ever like overused, right? Like I'll give
Hmm.
the example of Giant's Deep, where there's I think one thing that you need to actually wait for a planet to be lifted up before it gives you access to a specific thing, and that's like the one of the Giant's Deep gimmicks. It's got the cyclones that bring you under the
Wait,
water. It's got
sorry,
a few.
which one's that?
There was one moment where I was in the statue workshop and I had to wait until I was in space before I could jump across a gap
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, that bit. Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the only one.
Yeah, it is.
Like, yeah, and there's the hourglass twins, right? There's the rising sand, and you kind of need to manage the time that you arrive to the planet. Similar with Brittle Hollow, it's you need to manage the time you arrive to the planet to know what you have access to. But these gimmicks that only really applies to like, on Brittle Hollow, it's maybe like 2 or 3 places that you have to uh, be there at a specific time, or else it will kind of gate you in a different direction. And I absolutely loved that they had these gimmicks that really defined the identities of the planets, but didn't overuse it to have a huge amount of like, oh, this is another waiting for an island to be shot into space
Yeah.
so I can get onto it kind
I,
of
I
time.
I think a huge part of that as well is the way most of these mechanics completely throw you off when you first get there, but are very quickly learnable. Like Brittle Hollow,
Yes.
the first few trips you're there, suddenly the ground just drops beneath you, and you're like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. And then kind of like after you've been there a couple of times, you learn the signs and you know where's safe and where isn't. Same with like
Yeah.
the Ember Twin, like you quickly learn, oh, it's filling up, so you learn where the bottom paths are quite quickly. Like I think everyone
Yeah.
probably learnt the high energy labs path pretty quickly, and you're like, okay, I know my window there.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the idea that each planet has a sort of gimmick is really fun. Like the hourglass twins are so great because you can tell the thinking there was like, okay, for a time loop, like we should have one where the sand fills up, or wait, or
Yeah.
should it go down? Oh, could we do both? And it's like, but that feels kind of cheap to have them separate. It's like, well, what if we literally jam them together? Like that just
Yeah.
made it feel so much better to me.
Yeah.
I almost wish that what they could have done something cool with like where you had to travel back and forth to
Yeah.
do that. Like, because I think something they did do really well is use those effectively, like not just burying paths, but like the Ash Twin. The moment where I figured out that the cactus run to the sun station warp was so much easier if you got there early and you could just walk
Yeah.
over most of the cactuses was mind blowing.
Yeah.
Um, and that's such a cooler thing than, oh, this path appears at 6 minutes into the loop.
Exactly. It's so much richer,
Yeah,
right, than that. Um, yeah, I absolutely love it. This is, I think, the real strength of the game is everything feels so unique and nothing feels like it overstays its welcome,
no,
right? There's maybe 1 or 2 parts that are a bit too much of a chore. Like there's a part where in to get to the high energy lab, the sand needs to be at a certain level so you can get over a cacti.
yeah. So you have to sit there and wait, like a couple, wait, whenever
Yes.
you want to go in there. At least if
Yes,
you play it like I do.
that was one, and there was another one where, well, we'll get to the Ash Twin as well, which I think is a little bit similar.
Yeah.
But for the most part, for 99.9%, it's just executed brilliant, right?
Yeah, and I think this ties into this idea of them being separate pockets of planets because what it let them do is focus on a thing for each planet
Yeah,
and build everything around that. And I think it's interesting because the way I explored the solar system is I kind of went outwards. Like I started on the twins, then I went to like Brittle Hollow, then Timber Hearth. Like I sort of moved outwards. And what I did sort of notice is I felt like the gimmicks not necessarily got weaker, but got less integrated to the time loop thing, which disappointed me a bit. Like the twins, the rising and falling sand, I was like, oh, that's so coolly integrated with the time
Very
loop.
time
Same
themed,
with
yeah.
Brittle Hollow, like it's falling apart over the 22 minutes. Timber Hearth didn't really have a gimmick, but it's like your home planet, so like
Yeah.
you get to pass. Then I made it to Giant's Deep, and it was just kind of like, okay, so I don't know, it felt like a bit of a hodgepodge to me. It was like, oh, there's the
Interesting.
cyclones and the jumping, and then there's also this like core of the planet, which is just kind of a separate puzzle, and the tower and the
Yeah.
big cyclone. Like it was just a bunch of little puzzles. And
It's
then,
interesting. I wonder if it's because of the order, because
yeah,
I
it
went
could
to
be.
Giant Steep first, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." And then I got to and that was before I even knew it was a time loop, right? So
Mm.
I had this moment of, "Wow, this is amazing." And then as I get to closer to the sun, everything gets more time related. So it had kind of the opposite effect for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, and then I got out to Dark Bramble
Yeah,
last, and it was sort of like, well, this isn't time related, but it's a really cool twist on the old like Lost Woods
it's
type
like space
formula.
related, right?
Yeah. Well, it
You're
felt
right.
more.
It is very Lost Woods. I hadn't made that connection, but it is very much just a space version of the Lost Woods from Zelda. Huh?
Yeah, it's a cool like 3D twist on it.
Yeah.
I think as well, like I feel like the genesis for Dark Bramble was a planet that has something to do with the signal scope. Like it was puzzles built around the signal scope if you play it normally.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I kind of wish that like there could have been more planet built mechanics that had something to do with the time or that integrated with the time loop. Like
I don't. I feel like then there's more of the like if there's planets that have to be accessible at certain times, then it just feels like like you need some stuff that you can do at any time, you know? Like
yeah.
often I would say, "Oh, I want to get to this part, but I need to wait for a few minutes until the sand is low enough, so I'll go and do this thing first and then come back to it," you know?
Oh, SNES brings up a good point in the comments, which is the interloper also has that
As
time window thing. Like that's a good one. I was just thinking like it'd be cool. I'd love a planet that changed based on whether it was day or night where you are. So like imagine if it was
mm,
covered in like dark bramble plant type things that changed shape or like grew and shrunk depending on whether it's night or day.
mm,
And so then you'd have to kind of time your way around the planet, or and you know maybe you get the ability where your scout's light has some effect or your flashlight has some effect, and you're kind of
mm.
learning your way around the planet. Like there's something like that I think could be really cool.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think there's one more thing I want to touch on here, which I don't know if we're going to touch on later, but the idea of the way that these mechanics all integrate together in such a nice way, like there's nothing in the game that just serves one purpose, right?
Yeah,
Like everything comes in multiple ways, except the one that I felt was going to have another purpose but never really did, which was the ghost matter particle stuff. I always thought
yeah.
there's going to be something where I can do something with them, but I never could.
It just
Uh,
usually serves as a way to make you go around
yeah,
stuff.
go a long way. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Apart from that one, all of the others were so like there was so many levels to everything, which was so awesome.
Yeah, and that was one of those reasons where when I found out about the rule of quantum imaging, I was like kicking myself because I was like, obviously, like you haven't had to use photos for anything yet, like apart from ghost matter.
Yeah,
And I was like, of course, like why didn't I try this already? It was sort of my thinking when I
yeah.
when I got to that tower. I was like, oh, I'm an idiot.
Because I'd had this experience where I was trying to get to the quantum moon before I knew the rule of quantum imaging, right? And I
Same.
knew, oh, I probably have to land on the like it said that you always arrive on the South Pole, so I was trying to like get to the South Pole and it just wasn't working. And when I was trying to get to the quantum moon, I noticed that when I opened my map and looked where it was, and then closed my map and opened it again, it was always in a different place. And I was like, whoa! Like even if I look at it on my map, it moves. And then I've learned the rule of quantum imaging that is, if you look at the image of something, that's the same as looking at it. And I was like, oh fuck! Like everything just works so neatly and all
Yeah.
clicks into place. It's one of 10 moments of like, oh shit, that's so awesome, and it all makes sense that I had
Also,
in the
this is
game.
just a weird aside, probably, and we don't have a slide for this, but like, I love the quantum stuff as a mechanic just because it feels like one of those things. Like, sometimes you learn about a function in Unity, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I want it. Like, that's cool. I wonder if there's a game mechanic I can build around that. And I feel like that's how quantum stuff started. Like, because there's that function in Unity that lets you check whether something is being rendered by the camera or not.
Yeah.
And it feels like they found that, but like they're better than me because what they actually managed to do was take this cool feature they found in the engine and be like, hey, we can build interesting mechanics around this.
Yeah. The quantum is one of the coolest mechanics in this game. When you get to the museum and you're like, this rock moves when you're not looking at it. I was like, wait, what the fuck? And
Yeah.
it works in a way that is so alien, and yet once you learn it, it becomes so immediately intuitive to how it works. It's brilliant. It's so good.
And that, like, the quantum imaging is such like a great extension of the core idea. And then I think the only thing is like, because there's the 3 rules you need to get to the moon, and it does kind of feel like the North one was a bit of a like, oh, we need some sort of extra barrier. Like it felt like the odd one out to me, because the other 2 are kind of like learn the ideas behind how quantum works, and the other one was just like, this is a bit of arbitrary information you need. But like the rest of it, like, yeah, I love the whole quantum setup just as an idea.
That moment in Lakebed Cave where you get on the rock and turn off your flashlight and then turn it back on again,
and you're in a
different place. I was just like, whoa, what the fuck? This is awesome. Like, and it's so, I mean, it's worth applauding the technical back end behind this game that is so seamless in this open world, which is like brilliant how well they do it.
Oh yeah, because it's made in Unity 5. Yeah. Which may not mean much to most people, but like when I learned that, I was like, how does this game work? Like, it should be a trash fire.
yeah. It actually is just like, it works brilliantly. There was I think 1 or 2 moments where, as I was flying into Giant's Deep, there was a little bit of stutter, and I was like, oh, this is the part where it started loading Giant's Deep.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it was flawless.
Yeah,
no, there's one other one, which is when you fly into a seed in Dark Bramble, there's a little bit of like cutscene animation kind of vibe where suddenly your momentum changes.
Yeah, but that's almost a gameplay thing, because when you get into the one that's the nest, that's a very important feature.
Yes,
because before I knew that was a feature, I was dying a lot when I entered that room. In fact, I didn't realize till I was watching your stream that you could ride your ship through that nest. I was hopping out of the ship every time to do it.
Why? I don't understand.
Because they can't hear your...
Oh, they don't hear your suit thrusters.
Well, they do if you like put it on full ball, but if you like half power your personal jetpack, the anglerfish don't hear it. So I thought that was how you were meant to do it.
Nice.
Anyway, sorry, let's move on to the next slide.
So the rumor system is something that I want to touch on. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about a realization I had when we were making the notes, which is this game is functionally an adventure game, right? Like an old school adventure game where you're going around and collecting bits and pieces, and then you take, the toothpick and you click it on the screw in the dining hall, and that unlocks you the metal detector, right?
Do you have any titles you're thinking of specifically when you call
it? Like Monkey Island or like adventure games. Do you know what I'm? Have you not? They're old. It's a genre of game that has kind of died out. Yeah. Honestly.
Is it like those old like texty ones where it's like you're in a room, you have like an axe?
They're similar.
Like those sorts of, okay.
But so instead of collecting, a toothpick or whatever, you're collecting information that you then use later on or at a different location. And I thought that was so interesting to me. And the reason that I really liked it was you find out this rumor system, and it's like you find this rumor system, and it's so incredibly useful for making you not get lost. The thing I hate about adventure games is you just feel like you don't know what you're doing half the time, right? Like you just literally feel like you don't know what you're doing. I guess you don't know this experience, but imagine if you had Outer Wilds without the rumor system, where you couldn't just be like, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing. Or this is like a thread that's dangling that I can.
No, I mean, I've had this experience in games before where you're just sort of like, and then you look it up and it was like, oh, didn't you remember that in level 3 they told you XYZ? And you're like, well, no. Like, I played that 6 months ago.
It's an example, right? Majora's Mask doesn't have a cohesive system that tracks your clues for you. And it made me realize how great of an invention this is, not only because it tracks your clues, but it also says, there's more to explore there if you haven't finished it, which is incredible because it actually lets you know for certain, like, no, I've been there, I've done that. Like, I don't need to worry about that anymore. It reminds
Yeah.
you of the key information, so it like cuts out the chaff. If you're really stuck, you can be like, oh, this is the key piece that I should know about, and it gives you question marks of this is something you haven't explored yet. And those three things are just so effective in terms of making sure you're never lost. I literally was never lost for something to do, which is incredible.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like to talk about Majora's Mask, which I promised Ruben I'm only going to do this 3 times today. Um, the like because it had the Bomber's Notebook in the original, which was just a
Yeah,
really really shit version of this this rumor thing,
yeah,
and then the 3DS version improved it heavily. But this again is just like another leap and bound. Like you're right, I actually only looked at the ship's log for the first time about 12 hours in. Because that was the first time I got stuck, and I was just like just overwhelmed with joy when it was just kind of I sat down and I was just like, oh my god, my ship has been tracking where I've been. Oh, there's a notification here telling me I missed something. I
yeah,
was like, I'm kind of glad I only found this now because I didn't want too many hints, but I was like, that's great. Like I just and as a system, like the sort of whiteboard with the detective's whiteboard mode is so
yes,
great for helping you link concepts because you get to cheat a little when two things are close. You're like, oh, okay,
yeah, probably
yeah,
related. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Like it's such a great implementation of a thing. A lot of games have just kind of not done properly. Like so every other fucking game these days has like a quest log or something. You open it up and it either tells you nothing or everything.
yeah,
This is such a fun way of feeding you information in a way that is true to how the game wants you to play it, which is to explore and pick at the ideas it's presenting you with.
yeah. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great invention.
Yep. So I'll move on to the next slide. Do we have sound for this one?
This one's yours, I think.
Yeah, I thought.
It's got sound. I can hear it.
Why can't I hear
I
it?
need to.
Well, anyway, for some reason I can't hear it. But what I wanted to talk about here is like, so this is the moment where this was my first loop, and I went to Whitehall Station, and I started
Nice.
panicking because I started rotating the thing, and I was like, wait, I don't want this because I thought that would make teleporting harder. And then I
Hmm.
was like looking at this thing, and I was like, oh no, this is way easier because now I'm gonna hit it so much quicker. Um, and yeah, so this is my sort of first loop, and I'm like sitting here, and I read that I have to stand here when the planet lines up,
Yeah.
and oh, I'm so sad I don't have the audio here because my reaction on my first warp, I was like so excited, and
You were so excited. Good on you.
but so this is where I want to sort of talk about this secret, like to use my second of my 3 allocated Majora's Mask comparisons.
Yep. All right.
The thing that
Mark
really
it off.
defines Majora's Mask, aside from the time loop, is this idea. Iwata wanted players to feel like they were detectives investigating the lives of the members of Clocktown, and that's what you
Yep.
meant to do. Is you sort of meant to map out their lives and learn about them.
Yes.
And this game kind of does the same thing, except rather than a detective, I think maybe like an explorer or an investigator would be
Mm.
a better word for it.
Yeah.
Because like this game does that just to the extreme. Like there are so many moments. So like, this is one where like I just started fucking around with things, and then technology started working, and I was able to warp across the solar system, and I was like, I'm a fucking genius. And like I wasn't. Like I just did what the game told me to do.
Yeah.
But there's such a strong sense of like I am an explorer and an investigator and an archaeologist in this game, and it's like from the ground up, it's so cool.
Mm. Yeah. No, it is. And it's great. Like it ties into the fact that there's always feels like there's useful discoveries to be made because no matter where you go, you feel like you find something incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's brilliant.
And like I think this ethos is so ingrained into the game. Like the thing that jumps out to me is to sort of make another comparison. Like one of the things I really loved about the design of Doctor Who that they've talked about is like when they were designing the Doctor as a character or as a hero, they wanted him to be someone who was like a kind and caring hero. So they gave him a second heart. Like that's what separates Time Lords from humans, is the amount
Yeah.
of the heart. And then his weapon is like a screwdriver because he fixes things.
Yeah.
And so it's like, sort of from the ground up, the Doctor was built to be someone who is a hero you trust because he has extra empathy and he fixes things.
Yeah.
In this game, we're a character whose tools are like a spacesuit to get around. We have 4 eyes. We have a thing that lets us see signals, and we have a camera to take photos. And so sort of like all of our tools from the ground up are built for us to be explorers.
Yeah.
And that just sort of permeates this whole game. Like you were just running around exploring, and all your tools directly map that like one thing. Like you can tell that was the ethos, I think, of the design. And they were, when they're building like your tool set, they're like, okay, well, what's something that will help you explore and like archaeologize?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. 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 It really is a beautifully designed game in that sense. It's so effective at rallying around its core idea of what, you want to figure out what this society of the past was like.
Yeah, yeah. Like it turns you into an investigator in every layer and just rewards you for being one. Like it's just an ethos that permeates the entire design, and I think that's why this game works so well, because everything from the ground up sort of comes back to that one idea.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, should we talk about the next one?
Yes. So I'll just. Are you getting the audio from these?
When I listen to them through the slides, yes. Some of them start out muted, some of them don't.
Doesn't practice for the actual. Figured it out. Yeah, I'm getting the audio now.
Okay. But I think this one is a background clip. I don't know if you set audio on this one.
I did. This was sort of meant to be me. That's probably all the audio we need. So this is like 5 minutes into my first playthrough when I tried to control a model ship.
God, this was so hard.
Yeah,
it really took me a long time.
I just started panicking. I was like, okay, if this is how we control the ship in this game, I'm fucked. And it's a little bit easier in the actual thing, because I think part of what makes this model hard is the fact that your point of view is fixed.
Yes.
And not relative to the ship. So once it's upside down, you have no idea what you're doing. But even then, like even when you're in the ship and it's easier, I think the controls still feel very unique. They're kind of hilariously wonky when you first get in.
Yeah.
I like how there's sort of an emphasis on the thruster, like the L2 on the PlayStation, but the one that lifts you up, because it gives you that sense of I'm in a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And like I don't know. I obviously I think it's a control scheme that comes to its strength later in the game when you realize you're going to be flying in different gravities and you need to have an understanding of orbital mechanics. Like as opposed to like, having like roll, pitch and yaw and like a thruster would just be a nightmare in some of the later situations in different gravities.
Yeah.
But I also think just like when I was seeing like the Harthian tech when I started the game, it's your ship has like a wooden side. And I was just like, oh, okay, so that's what we're working with here. And then you get in this ship, and at first you like can't control it, and you're like, oh my god, like this is a nightmare. I thought that like gelled together so well.
Yeah, it is. It's so thematic, right? Because you are in this kind of rinky-dink spaceship, and the fact that you have these things of like flying and understanding the way gravity works and being able to track like your momentum. That I think, in fairness, on Timber Hearth in this model ship is very difficult. But once you actually experience it in your ship, you kind of do get really good at this weird control scheme. It feels like a very natural way to explore.
Yeah. I almost wanted to pull the clip to play right after this of me landing on the Sun Station yesterday for that trophy, because you're right. Like there's a real sense of mastery that comes from these flight controls because they're so unintuitive when you first start. Like at the start, the ship feels like a nightmare, and then by the end of the game, when you're like threading needles and stuff, like you feel super proud of yourself.
Yeah,
because you've improved.
Yeah, definitely. It really gives again that sense of mastery, even though nothing has changed from the first loop to the last, right?
Yeah. So like, I actually like at first I was like, oh my god, these controls are terrifying, and then later on I was like, no, they're unique. I think they work with the game. You get a
Yeah.
mastery of them. Like I think they're actually genius. They map to what you do in the jetpack as well, which is important.
Yes.
Because they
Here's
feel
a
way more
question.
intuitive there.
Yeah. Well, most of us didn't use the jetpack as much as you, Elliot.
Fair.
Here's a question for you, because I played this on PC, and it's WASD and shift and control to go up and down.
Oh god.
How is it comparatively on PS4? Because I found it very easy on PC.
Oh yeah. I mean, I loved it. Like I thought.
Yeah.
Doesn't the game tell you to play on a controller, Ruben? Did you
It does.
ignore the
I did not.
instructions?
I don't understand why I would say that. I don't get what thing about a controller was easier. If
Yeah.
anything, it would have been worse because you can't look with a mouse, and playing an FPS without a mouse is nonsense.
That I definitely like, and I mean, if anybody watched my streams, was saying like I struggled so much with some of the controlling the balls just because the acceleration on the looking with the control stick on the PS4 was whack, and so I was constantly overshoot, undershoot, like where I wanted the ball to go. Um,
I don't.
I I,
Can,
I
can
imagine
someone
you had a
explain?
much easier time moving the ball around than I
Yeah.
did.
Why would it want you to use a controller? I don't get it.
I think there's a real natural feeling to how the ship controls because it's basically the two triggers
Right.
for up and down, and then just like one of the sticks to power the other four directional thrusters.
Right. I don't
I
know.
assume that's it. I don't know. I barely ever played a game with PC controls, so like I don't know how to compare it.
Yeah, the fact that you need to use control, I get the idea with the ship's thruster, but the FPS controls on a controller would just drive me crazy, especially with the balls, moving around the balls.
Yeah,
I
they
just,
were a nightmare. Um, But just to go back to the ship controls as well, I just also want to touch on there's those few quality of life things like the ability to match something's orbit, which is like hugely important to my ability to move around.
mm,
But also the autopilot, which fits into this whole aesthetic of helpful but also clunky. Like
yeah,
autopilot failing just enough that it pisses you off is so fun. Like the first time I autopiloted myself into the sun, I was sort of like, huh, so when's it going to start taking me around the sun? It is going to take me around the sun, right?
yeah.
um,
I did that too, and then on the next loop, or when you wake up next, you can talk to. I've forgotten the name of the person. I think it was Slate, the one that's right next to the fire where you wake up, and you can say, "Hey, my autopilot flew me into the sun," and he's like, "Well, it's theoretically possible." It's like, fucking hell, tell me that beforehand, man.
yeah, but and especially because I love how it sucks at coping with things that move or that accelerate beyond just like a simple orbital one. So it's terrible at getting to the interloper, and I think it's fun there because it helps you, but you still have to do stuff. Like
Yeah.
at first, it pissed me off that it wasn't like a sort of get out of jail free card for flying.
Yeah.
But as I got better at the flying and stuff, I just really liked it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So like again, I think it fits into this whole thing. Like it's like the ship's wooden. Like there's some advanced parts, but also it's just a clunker.
Yeah. Good times. Yeah, I loved the autopilot. It was like it's I guess like a real autopilot where you kind of manage the landing and take off yourself, but it wants you to it helps you cut the like not have to pay attention when you're just I need to just go to that planet. You just
Yeah.
take me most of the way there.
Yeah, it's more like cruise control, honestly. Like,
Yeah,
because I
exactly.
definitely had a few moments. Like there were two times I think where I would one of the times I switched on autopilot and then went back and was like refilling my tank and stuff, and
Yeah.
like while autopilot was going, and as I was doing that, we crashed into the Ember Twin or something, and I died. And then there was another time I did it and it was fine, but like I stopped doing it after the crash, I think.
The other thing
Yeah.
that it's great for is I'm so bad at knowing when to start decelerating.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I just relied on the autopilot for that because otherwise I would just fly into planets so
I
much.
always left it too late. The one exception was when I got to exploring Giant's Deep, and I was just happy to like catapult into the planet and have the water catch me.
Oh yeah, yeah, no.
Um, yeah.
Cool. Should we go move on to the next slide?
Yes. So this one actually probably should have audio. Yeah. How do you stay calm? Okay, sure. What? Oh, God damn it. Oh, that's a good troll. That is a good troll. So yeah, I mean, what happened in that clip was I met Jabro, and he was remarkably
He
calm.
murdered you.
Yeah. And it was actually like I would have included it in this clip, but it's about an hour and a half later that I figured out that it had added a meditate thing to my menu screen.
Yeah.
Um, and why I sort of wanted to bring this up was because something that really defined this game to me is they clearly tried very hard and went out of their way to not have like loop altering mechanics, like the ability to bring this one thing back with you,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
this door will stay open from now on.
Yeah.
And I think like that's really admirable because it's a very hard thing to work around. That's a huge limitation design wise.
Yes. There's no unlocks in the game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Except for the meditation.
I was convinced that like at the start that I will get a suit upgrade that lets me go through ghost matter later on, like at the start, you know,
Yes,
like
totally.
so like just first of all, I want to give props to Mobius for making that call and kind of sticking with it. There like Jabro's meditation is this kind of weird one exception where especially I don't know why it's like in this one weird corner of Giants Deep that you earn this ability to meditate. Like
Yeah.
it felt very random and arbitrary to me that this is where you learn this one thing. But like overall, I wish I'd actually gotten a clip here of like the shortcuts into the cities because I think those were my favorite.
Yeah.
The two shortcuts into the cities are incredible for you would never see them from the outside. They are perfectly hidden, but once you know they're there, I never had trouble finding them.
Mm. Yeah. The one that I used so much was the one that gets you to the crossroads next to the Hanging City, where you kind of walk down these walls. Like for the first 3 or 4 times, I had to go through the Hanging City each time to get to the crossroads. And then I was like, oh shit, there's this path here that I could take. And it changed. Like it's brilliant how well that was done.
That's interesting. I consider that the shitty normal way.
Oh, really?
That's not the shortcut I'm talking about was the one at the North Pole in that watery area that takes you straight to the Hanging City.
Oh, sure. I never used that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But the one next to the gravity cannon on Ember, like to get you to the underground Ember Island, the Ember Twin.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
like both of those to me were just like ones where I was just like, you'd never see this normally, and then once you know they're there, it's such a quick way, and like, what a brilliant piece of design work to let you be rewarded with knowledge as a kind of upgrade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's great, isn't it? I was sad. There are a few where, you go through a lab and then you open a door to get back out to the surface, but those doors won't stay open, obviously. Which makes sense because everything resets.
Yeah, but sometimes that would annoy me. Like I would go through all this stuff and get out a door, and I'd be like, well, I'm gonna have to go through this whole path again next loop.
Yeah.
So like finding something
lab ban specifically.
Yeah, well, finding the shortcut into the Sunless City, so you can skip straight there, was great. And like yeah, like I think brilliant design to avoid having to actually, give me like something like like a key card, because I think they could have easily overused codes, because the one code you get is sort of the coordinates to the eye and sort of the launch codes, and I think like if there was a point where you had like 10 sets of codes to open doors, like that would have just been annoying as fuck. Right? Like this is so much more of an inventive way to let new information work for us like that.
Yeah. This was something. So the launch codes is Morse code for MDN, and the whole game I was waiting to see if that would come up as something, but I don't think it does ever. Do you have any thoughts on that? Does that mean anything? I was trying to figure out what that acronym could mean again, but I didn't have any thoughts.
I don't know. I'd never even thought about that. It's a good point. It is Morse code.
Yeah.
No
it was
idea.
the first thing I did when I got the launch code. I was like, "Ooh, what does this mean?" I was like, "MDN, interesting. Well, that'll be relevant later." And I don't think it was.
Yeah. Well, should we get into the next slide?
Yes. This is something that we've talked about a lot on the Discord. So if you want to get access to more great chats about Game Club stuff, in the month leading up to Game Club, become a patron of Doof Media, and you'll get access to the Doof Media Discord. But the the final the ending of not the ending of the game. We'll talk about the specifically the ending, but kind of the stuff you do in your last loop of the game. I think is worth talking about.
Yeah.
Specifically, there's one thing that I think everyone has had an experience with, which was getting into the ATP, the Ash Twin project, and the interesting puzzle there, I guess.
Yeah, because I think the thing that we really need to talk about there, like the thing that trips everyone up is the fact that you can't get in like without using that sort of nook or waiting till the very end
Yes.
because you have to like you get sucked up too early. And I think the thing
Yeah.
is like I feel like the design of that aspect of it was, oh, we don't want people stumbling in there too early, which makes sense to me. But I worry that in this particular instance they overshot, because what I think I saw a lot of people do was try it, get sucked up, and be like, okay, that's not right.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know. We sort of talked about it a lot on Discord. I think I really liked there was an idea from Cyberhomes at one point, which was just, oh, there should be like a message somewhere, like the Black Hole Forge or one of the other late game things, maybe even on the Quantum Moon, because the Quantum Moon never really ties back into anything else once you get there, which kind of annoyed me. So even having Solanum sort of have a thing of like, oh yeah, like before we put the roof on the Ash Twin project, we really had to time it perfectly and run in at the right moment, you know, like something like that to tell you that that's what you're meant to do, because I think a lot of people don't get it. Like I kind of figured it out by accident because I was too slow to get on there.
Well, I think I had pretty much as close as possible to the intended experience where I had all the pieces. I knew, okay, this tower is meant to warp me into the ATP. It's broken. Like I've got to figure this out. I obviously can't do it with the sand. And it took me about 3 or 4 tries to get it right, which is pretty much, I think, what the intended experience is.
Yeah.
And I thought it was okay. It did feel a little janky, right? Like in a game that is so well designed, this final puzzle being a little bit too janky does stand out.
Yeah, I like again. I like to me, it just comes down to I think when you get all the other pieces of information, like Black Hole Forge tells you that oh, the twins act as one celestial body, so that's your clue.
Yeah.
Oh, like that teleporter will still take me to the Ash Twin project. And there's sort of other places that give you all these clues, but nothing hints to you that this idea that the timing and the sand will matter, except maybe there's like the oh, you only have 5 degree window, but I don't think that works for human people. That sort of 5 degree thing.
One of the clues that solved it for me. It wasn't the center of mass thing that didn't really play into it for me. It was, oh, the timing doesn't have to be exact.
Right.
That led to me figuring it out. So I would have a bit more time to play around and do stuff. I didn't have to be standing there right at the exact moment.
I feel like more people would sort of take that as a sign that it's not correct, because when the sand sucks you up, like most people take the 5 degrees to sort of mean, oh, I should have more time. And so then when the sand sucks you up, you're like, oh, I'm wrong. Like I think that's probably the disconnect that happens there.
Yeah.
Like I think, yeah, just a bit of text in another late game area that sort of hints that the timing specifically relating to the sand column matters would be a great fix.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting. I think this was one of the major problems that a lot of people had. But anyway, let's.
I mean, it's a tiny blemish. It's such a good feeling when you get into the Ash Twin project for the first time. Like at least for me, like it was sort of the last thing I did, and actually finally getting into this place I'd been projecting into for like the entire game was just like fuck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I had this experience of I had, got the warp coordinates. I had gone to the vessel and tried it, and the warp core was broken. And I was like, oh shit, I need to get a warp core. And the only other time a warp core is really mentioned outside of the high energy lab is there's one in the Ash Twin project. And so I had this moment of, okay, well, this is what I'm trying to do. And I really got it. I got it all. And then when you finally get in, you read everything, you see the warp core, you open it up, you fly up and grab it. I was like, I mean, this is the moment that I did that. It was awesome. Yeah. It was so much fun. It was like, it's all been building to this, and it really paid off in such a great way.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I'd been to the vessel, I tried to power it up with the broken warp core and it hadn't worked. I had the coordinates to the eye. I was like, I need to get this vessel to the eye. And
Yeah,
then when I got into the Ash Twin project and that thing opened up and I saw the warp core, it was like, yeah, it was that moment. It's like, oh, it's all come together now. Like I knew exactly what I had to do, and it was a fantastic moment.
yeah.
Yeah, like I think wait, one other little thing is like, so I failed on my first and some others attempts to get the warp core like to the eye. And there's no sort of punishment. Like there's this moment, you know, where you take the warp core out and they're like, this will disable the Ash Twin project. The loop will end. And
Yeah.
there's a like feeling of gravitas to that moment, which then when I failed and found out it didn't really mean anything
Yeah, I
gameplay wise,
know.
I was a bit like, I actually think I should have been punished for failing on this run.
Yeah, I accidentally flew into the mouth of an anglerfish with all,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh shit, like,
Do
am
I
I going to
lose
be able to
everything?
try this again? But then obviously, like, the worst it can do is delete your save, and even then, you know all the things. Like, it would suck. Obviously, I don't know. It
Yeah.
wouldn't stop you from doing it though, because you know all the answers.
Yeah,
So
what
what
you
do you
lose is your ship log, basically.
and that would just feel shitty, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no, yeah. I don't think there's a good solution they could have,
No.
except maybe they could have had an unskippable cutscene where you have to watch everyone die.
Yeah.
So something, right?
Yeah, so, something like that. I guess, yeah. I mean, it's funny because this final loop wasn't at all what I pictured halfway through the game. Like, I had this idea because the Ash Twin had all the towers. I had this idea that the final loop was going to involve like doing something on every planet, and
Yeah.
like this, it was going to be this epic journey where I had to like go to the sun station, flick a switch, go to Brittle Hollow, twist some knobs, like. And it was actually there was a part of me that was like, oh, so all I have to do is do this one thing and then go to the vessel and then I'm out of the solar system. Like, oh, that's easy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I had the same thought, and this is going to start tying into the ending stuff as well, which is, in my head the whole way through, I was thinking of, okay, here's the problems that we're facing, right? Number one, there's a bramble seed on Brittle Hearth, so Brittle Hearth is, sorry, no, on Timber Hearth, so Timber Hearth is fucked, right? Like, really, we're in problems there. Two, the sun's going supernova. Three, we've got we've got the interloper, and I was like, okay, there's all these things that are clearly problems, right? We've got all these things that are clearly problems, and the ending is going to be, I'm going to solve all those problems and I'm going to save my village. And that's just not the ending.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. We'll get there. We'll get
let's
there in
go
a
to the
sec.
next slide. Yeah.
Well, just actually before we do that, I do just want to also talk about I don't know. Maybe we could do that. I'll just say it here. Like so something I did after getting like the sort of ending yesterday was, and I kept playing, and I had Cyber Holmes in the chat helping me. There's like a bunch of like, they call them like alternate endings, but really it's just kind of other ways to die. They're not like proper endings. It's just funny other ways to break things. So there's all this cool stuff you can do. Like if you stay in the Ash Twin project when its black hole sends all the data back, there's another version of yourself that you can talk to. And there's all sorts of other ways to break the thing. Like one other thing I did was I took the warp core out and tried to leave the solar system. So I like dodged the supernova with the warp core. And so then it comes up on with this thing on screen that's just like, you stayed alive until you ran out of supplies and then you died. And then it sends you back. Like that was just a fun little sort of post game stuff that I almost wish they'd had more like achievements and stuff for to kind of.
One for, what if you take out the warp core from the ATP, take the warp core out, leave, put the warp core on like Ash Twin or something, and then go warp back into the ATP and wait out the supernova in there? What happens then?
You just die. Like the supernova would kill the.
But isn't the whole point of the core of the ATP that it's protected from the supernova? Isn't that its whole purpose? Like why it's like cased in that super material?
I don't think it's that strong. It's designed to be powered by it, but no, I think it would still die. But that's maybe I'm wrong. It's an interesting question. One thing I did try as well was, even leaving the warp core in there, if you just like try and accelerate away from the solar system for the whole 22 minutes,
Yeah.
I got like 20,000 kilometers away from the sun because I had it like locked on, that it disappeared, and then your screen just sort of goes grey, and you just sort of wake back up, and it's just kind of like, oh fuck, like, but you see the whole supernova go on. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool.
Anyway, yes, let's talk about the ending. So I think you had a clip for this one.
Well, again, this is just kind of a clip of the ending, and obviously this is spoilers. But you get to the eye, and the whole way through, this is something that was interesting to me. Was the whole way through, the story is, the Nomai came to this place, this solar system, because of the eye, right? Like,
Yep.
and there's a lot about like, oh, there's this sentient place that's like, there's this sentient thing or some signal that clearly means something. It's this really old signal, and we've got to go figure out what it is, and all this really crazy stuff to find the eye. And you do find it, and it's fine. It's just kind of like a trippy hallucination. Like, it's not. There's no grander
I think
thing,
Yeah, well, the thing for me is I didn't understand, how the eye was going to help, right?
Yeah.
Like there was this sense of like, okay, it is this mysterious thing, and the universe is dying, so it's probably going to help. But I didn't quite understand why I'm trying to go there. Like for that final loop, you're sort of like, well, I mean, this is sort of what I'm doing based on all the context clues the game has given me, but I don't quite understand what I'm expecting the eye to do for me. I just don't have any better ideas.
Yeah.
And then you're right. Like you get there, and I mean, this is probably more of a personal thing. I never talked to most of the other Harthians. I didn't care about them. So to sort of get there and find out there are all these people, like half of their signals were unidentified for me when I was there. Like it was like, oh, you have identified like Esker, and I was like, who?
Yeah.
Like Solanum was the only person I was excited to see. I was like, oh, it's my mate from the moon. So there was this weird disconnect for me where I was kind of like, I've done all this exploring, and then I end up in this fucking dreamscape or whatever that I don't understand, and suddenly all these people are here and they suddenly know everything, and I was like, I don't understand what's happening. Then we do something to the universe that I also don't understand.
I mean, my goal was save my village and stop the supernova from killing everybody, and that just doesn't happen. Like, the ending of the game is you get to the eye, you have some trippy hallucination stuff, which is cool, obviously, and then just like the world ends anyway. Like you literally watch all the solar systems explode, and you're like, oh, okay. And there's this one thing where they have this after credits scene, right? They have this after credits sequence where you see there's another universe, and it's clearly like fractured and a bit broken. And then you see another race of what looks like kind of the dawning of a new civilization of like lizard people or whatever, right? And so the ending of that is like, yes, like your universe ended, but like life goes on and ecosystems stabilize, right? And in a new way. And then that's kind of the ending there. And I'm like, okay, that's something, but it's not what I was trying to do at all. Like what I was trying to do was save my universe, not just have some form of life somewhere go on somewhere, right? Like,
yeah, like my working theory as I was trying to get to the eye was, oh, it'll be some unimaginable power source. It'll let me go back in time and like fix the universe. And I was like, I don't understand how that's going to work, but I'll be able to go back to like the Big Bang and fix things somehow, and I will be the eye or something.
Yeah.
And then yeah, you're right. I got there and it was just kind of like, oh, I think we made a new universe instead. Yeah, like I don't know. It was a very confusing. I think maybe it's just working on a level above my head. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the level it's operating on is you can't save the universe. That's not what the story is to be about. It's your kind of, leading to life going on in some form. And that's okay. That's obviously, if the choice is life ends forever or there's some more life that happens eventually, obviously you choose there's more life that happens eventually. But I don't, that didn't feel satisfying enough to me, especially because the eye was built up as like, hey, this is something really important that's gonna do some crazy shit. And like the Nomai's entire purpose was we got to figure out what this thing is and we got to get to it. And that's what literally everything was building up to. And it's just nothing. Like it's just like, oh, it's a cool trippy place and there's some cool trippy stuff that happens.
Yeah,
That
like a lot of people in the comments are talking about how it's all sort of about acceptance and some things have to end. And like I see that, but it didn't land for me at the time, I suppose. Like
yeah,
I was suddenly in this space with these people who suddenly knew what was happening and I didn't, and I was just confused in this abstract space, and then it was suddenly like, oh, and the universe has ended. Like I didn't go through that process of all things all do have to end. There was just, oh, it has all ended for me. Like for whatever reason, I missed that part of the ending.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Like I don't know. I like it. Just it didn't click for me at the time for whatever reason.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it wasn't I don't know. It didn't feel like any of the goals that I'd been trying to achieve were related to the ending at all, right?
Yeah. Like I didn't have that moment. Like I mean, maybe it's a bit on the nose, but I kind of wish one of them, it's like one of the other Harthians or Solanum had sat me down and been like,
And
our
now this
universe
is
is,
what's
well,
happening.
yeah, our universe is dying. There's no way around it, but we can create something new. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like people are saying that's what the ending represents, but that didn't come through to me when I was playing it, I suppose.
Yeah, and nothing about the eye of the universe had seemed to indicate it was about creation at all,
Yeah.
right? Like, it was all about there's this really cool signal that contains the mysteries of the universe, right? Like it contains some mysterious sentience or whatever, and that's
Yeah.
not really
Or it
what it
was
is.
like there was the stuff that it's older than the universe, which is what got me thinking we were going to do like a Doctor Who season 5 where you
Yeah,
reboot the universe and fix it. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, like there's stuff there, but like for whatever reason, like didn't click for me. Um,
yeah,
yeah, like and I guess like I would also just say if the Harthians were going to be so crucial to the ending, like I was able to go through the game without talking to anyone but Jabro. Um, maybe they should have made them a bit more necessary to talk to
mm,
if they're going to be like a key emotional part of the ending. This is
mm,
like a weird, probably like a very minor complaint, but like I didn't know half their names. Like when I got there, I was like, oh, Feldspar, and then I met the bongo guy. I still don't know what his name is. Like yeah,
yeah. Chert. Um,
sure.
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was a cool ending, like cool from the
Oh, it
perspective of
was.
one of my all my favorite moments were like, for example, when you're walking down towards the eye and there's the thunderstorm, and each flash of thunder has different trees appearing and
Oh,
disappearing.
the eye is such a great moment, like
I was
on the
like, fuck,
surface.
this is so cool. Like, it feels incredibly impressive, but the message behind it didn't feel like it lived up to yeah to what the game had been building to, right?
I found it more confusing than impactful, I suppose.
Yeah. Cool. What else should we talk about?
Yes, I just wanted to give one other side, which was like a shout out to so a bunch of the people on the Doof Discord, because a lot of us like stream it on there and chat about it on there. A few people, I think it was like Hero of Oldine who started it. Started this exploration log where basically as people were streaming they were like recording what happened. It also evolved this hilarious thing where everyone had their own color and fonts to kind of represent the nomai, so they were like branching conversations, like people would make a point and then somebody would make like a sub point and it felt very nomai.
Yeah.
So this is a 50-page Google Doc that's available in our Discord, and it's got like Scott, yours, my playthroughs, a bunch of other Discord users. It's it was so much fun. Like I obviously didn't get to engage with it much at all because I only finished the game yesterday and I didn't want spoilers. But like going through and reading back and like reading like what other users had done, looking back on my own journey and being like, oh, what an idiot. It was such a fun thing, and I think like just as a little plug for the Discord, like the game club channel in there for almost all these months has been such a great place to interact with people as they're playing the game, like, and turning this into a real social experience that has just been such a joy. Like, the community that's built up around this little game club has been so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the great thing about the game club is it's basically an excuse for us to play games together for a month and chit chat about them. And I really love it. And to tie it back again, if you're not a Discord member, if you're not a patron, you don't get access to that. So you should come on because it is great.
Yeah, and like this is such a tangible example of that. Like, yeah, like this document, people had so much fun making it, and I think because this is a game that, as a game that's built around rewarding you for gaining knowledge, that makes it so rewarding to watch someone else experience that, because you can't do it again, but you also have all the pieces, and watching other people put it together is just extremely satisfying. Like, I was ahead of you for most of the game, and watching your streams, I was just having so much fun watching you put the pieces together, and it based off completely different information to what I had at the time.
Yeah. And that's a testament to the strength of this game, right? The fact that it's so easily able to accommodate so many different playthroughs.
Like I haven't heard of two people having
the same
very similar experiences. There's a slight weakness to that design. We should just sort of point out, which is like there's lots of duplicate information, and I definitely found that some of my late game, I would get to a place and it would 80 to 90% of the information was stuff I already had.
Yeah, I had the same experience until I realized that with the transmissions, there was always a receiver and a sender that had the same information. And so I was like, oh, have I read this before? And then I realized, oh, I'm just reading the other side of this conversation.
Yeah. Even then, I'm talking about like when I got to the quantum moon and had the conversation with Solanum.
Oh yes, true.
I did that so late.
I already knew all of Solanum's stuff.
Like I knew 90% of what Solanum was telling me, and it felt like a little bit of a letdown. But at the same time, like I think that's just an unavoidable consequence of having such a non-linear game like this. Like I'm not really going to criticize them for it, because also it would be worse having all the stuff in only one place, because then it'd be so easy to miss crucial information.
Yeah, for sure. We're about to get to the Q&A section, so if people have questions, by the way, start chucking them in chat, and we'll talk to speak to them in a bit. But yeah, I really do think they did an exceptional job of, just like this game. It's so polished, right? Like, shit. This is one of the most polished and well-produced indie games I've ever played by far, and that's so impressive. Like, bravo to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the credits are shockingly short for how good this game is.
Yeah. Shit, yeah.
I think like there's one bit there were like 4 programmers.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's wild. Art direction incredible in this game.
Yes. Yeah. The soundtrack we haven't given enough credit to.
Yeah.
I was listening to the soundtrack on Spotify while I was preparing these slides this morning. I had to skip a few songs because they were more stress-inducing, but the others were bangers. Great.
The music that plays when you first boot up the game, like the first track you hear, fuck, I loved it. It was so good.
It's so good. And that was the one part of the finale that also that did very much work for me, is having everyone come together to play the song, and like me acting as a bit of a little composer to get them all to start. Like, very fun.
Yeah.
Right. Should we dive into the Q&A?
Yeah. Anyone got any questions? Anyone got any questions that they want to question us on, I guess? We'll just give some time in chat for them.
We have Will Bowpig complaining a bit about the lack, saying they encountered some bugs, which is...
I read through their exploration log and I was like, wait, what? This game has bugs? Like, they encountered like 6 bugs. I had literally none the entire time. I don't think anything happened that was anything that I thought was a bug. Was like, oh, the moon is moving when I open it on my map, and then just later on I realized, oh, no, that's
intentional. Yeah, I think Will Bowpig could make some money out of being a bug finder based on their running out of wilds.
Wild. We've got a question for you, Elliot, which is, were you trolling?
No. I wish I was. I will say the one part that came close to trolling is when I just decided to kind of immediately give up on the eye and die there.
That
It
was
was
the
sort of
most
like
frustrating part.
I'd been playing for so much longer than I wanted to. I was kind of done. When I didn't get the eye immediately, I was just like, oh, I'll call it here. And then, getting back there a couple of days later, I was like 5 minutes away from finishing, and it was kind of like, oh, that was stupid. But no, like that was genuine. I had it in my head that lifting that ball just made the thing come back out of the ground, and so I just wasn't trying it again. It took me until when I did to try it.
Yeah. I want to. So Kipos posted in chat. General note that the intro song, like the menu's theme, is the composer playing a banjo duo with himself. One track recorded at the start of development of the game, and one track recorded at the end of development of the game, which is just so awesome.
Oh,
Like,
that's
fuck,
really cool.
this company, man, sounds so cool.
I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for what Mobius does next.
Yeah,
I'm excited for it.
yeah. Question from Maddie is: did any planets stand out for you more than others?
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I it's hard. Like as we sort of touched on, like I went to Ember Twin for the start. Like that was my first one, and I still feel like it was the coolest. And it's hard to know how much of that is because it's my first one, and how much is just because it is.
Yeah, to give another example, I think my answer is Giant's Deep, even though there's so little to do there. The
Yeah,
moment of the fucking island being launched into the sky, I was just like, I was floored by it, you know?
yeah. Like Ember Twin was my first experience, like going places and like trying to be like learn the rules for stuff.
Yeah.
Like finding the Sunless City, figuring out the rules for when places close down, like getting to the anglerfish. Like it was just so cool to me because of my first one. Brittle Hollow is maybe the other one that stood out to me, just like because conceptually I think it's fantastic. Like a place that's crumbling, and rather than you dying, you end up having to go back to Whitehall Station for the 400th time
Yeah.
to get back to Brittle Hollow. Like, yeah,
Yeah. I do think maybe Brittle Hollow and Ember Twin stand out because they are the most dense in terms of content. Like there's just so much to do there.
yeah. So, Maddie did point out, I forgot, yeah. So, Mobius is they're the ones developing Stray, that cat game for the PS5. I'd forgotten about that.
I'm gonna
He
look
plays
this
a
up.
cat. It looks awesome. I saw the trailer for it. It looks dope. I did not realize though that was Mobius because obviously I saw that trailer before playing this. That's awesome. I'm even more
Mm,
excited for Stray now than I was already.
mm. Is it Mobius Digital? I'm not seeing their name on it, but I guess it is them. Unless I'm looking at the wrong trailer. Whatever. Yeah. Anyway. Cool.
What do you think is the worst death? Was a question that was just asked by Sigrag and ties
I
into
mean,
Kipos's
it's
question.
the audio, right? Like the audio of the death is what really sells it. So to me, probably running out of oxygen.
Yeah, taking that big final breath. Um, yeah, I don't know, cactusing myself to death, which I did a couple of times to end loops before I got meditation. That was a fun one. It's a very violent death.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Cactusing yourself to death is a rough one.
Yeah. Mistfist asks, is it a moral decision to continue the endless loop, or is it better to let the universe fade into nothing?
Uh,
That's a really interesting angle on the ending. Like that's kind of a fun one. Like with this idea, like we talked about the gravitas of removing the warp core, and it's like this. Like you can see in the movie adaptation of Outer Wilds, which please don't do that. Um,
who's play the lead in the movie adaptation? Dreamcasting. Dreamcasting in chat. Post to Dreamcasting. Okay.
but
All right.
but you could picture like this moment of like I've had enough of this loop. I have to go. Like I think that's like a really cool angle on the ending.
Yeah. But the thing is, okay, I it's not so maybe you have another understanding of this. There were a few pieces of writing that I found that said it's not time travel stuff. It's like there was a few pieces of writing throughout that made it imply that it was more like you weren't actually being sent back in time, right? Like you're just waking up with memories from like
Well,
yeah,
I
your
yeah.
memories are being sent back in time, right?
What's happening is, this is my understanding, could be wrong. So the Ash Twin project, that is the only thing. Like everything inside that sphere, that's what's going back in time, or at least all the hard drive stuff is. So what's
Yes.
happened is you have linked to this statue, and the statue gives you the ability to download and upload memories. So it's your
Yeah.
memories that are going back in time, and then they're getting re-uploaded into your head. And
Yeah.
really,
So
there's a conversation about like, is that in, because it is time travel. Like the memories are time traveling, and it can be you. If you step in there, you can have two of you, and
you
it's
can
really cool.
see yourself. Yeah.
But like really, the point is like there's the existential question of, is there any different if your memories get put back in your head and
Yeah.
you time traveling? And I guess the answer is yes, because one of them results in there being two of you, and one of them doesn't.
Well, yeah. So really, the only putting aside the shenanigans where you send yourself back in time, when you wake up for the final loop, that's that's the that's what's really happening, right? I mean, maybe that's an arbitrary distinction because
Yeah, I feel like this is really a semantic discussion more than anything else. Like, yeah.
yeah, sure. But you do remember all your deaths, which is nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So
The Nine Bishop asks, what did you think about the song that plays at the end of the loop and the reprise that plays when you remove the warp core? I found that warp core version of the song very stressful because it made me think the sun was about to go supernova every time I pulled the warp
I
core
mean,
out.
that's good, right? It puts you on edge because you need
Yeah,
to be on edge with a warp core. You got to be careful.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Um, yeah. The music of this game really effectively conveys the atmospheric nature of it. Like,
Mhm.
there's songs that play when you're in kind of discovery mode. There's songs that play when you're in, oh, I've just gotten to a sad bit mode. And it all just kind of effectively switches between these different vibes and buoys up the emotional weight quite well.
Yeah, I agree. The music's sensational.
Yeah. Any other questions before we wrap up? You know what a good question is, Elliot?
Yeah.
What game are we talking about next month?
Oh, I think I have a slide for that question.
Oh, shit. Almost like I knew that going in.
um, yeah. So our next game is going to be Slay the Spire, which is by
This is the first
Megacrit
Game
Games.
Club game I've actually played before.
I'm still not for five. I was thinking because this is a card game. I'm like 99% sure.
Kind of. Yeah. It's
Like
a
the
roguelike deck building game.
yeah,
Oh,
I mean, the last deck building game I played was I played Yu-Gi-Oh in middle school.
that's not a deck building game. That's a
Well
trading
then, okay.
game. Grommet. Shame on you.
Yeah. So
It's
I
not
have
the same thing,
absolutely.
you rascal.
Aren't they? Okay. I mean, you build a deck.
No, not really.
Okay. Well, anyway, so I have no frame of reference for what this game is going to involve, so I'm kind of excited.
It's deck building in the same way that FTL is ship building, a ship building game. Maybe that's the analogy. In FTL, as you play through the game, you build
Yeah.
your ship. In
Okay.
Slay Spire, as you play through the game, you build your deck. That's what a deck building game means.
Sure. Okay.
Okay,
Well, I'm
that's an
keen to
okay
check it out.
analogy.
I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh is also the last card game I played, unless you count like poker or blackjack. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
Maddie did have one last question, which I want to quote, which is, "How many anglerfish do you wish to kill?"
Yeah, all of them. I mean, God, they're ugly fucks, aren't they?
Did you?
That was those were fun moments. Sailing through the anglerfish, hands off keyboard style, just like not pressing any
I
buttons.
think the way that you have to go through the nest to get to the vessel is such a fun thing because you're so tense when you do that,
Yeah,
and forcing you to have a moment where you can't push any buttons for like what's almost a minute or half a minute,
yeah,
like is so stressful. Like I love that. It's such a great moment. No, there's actually a bit like, how you end up in a bit for the eye in a version of the museum.
yes,
Did you go up to the anglerfish thing and read the message there?
yeah. It was like, oh, we're
We
not going
will
to
miss
miss
you the
this one.
least.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, yep.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, join us next time, or get on the Discord. Head to patreon.com/doofmedia to get on the Discord, where we'll be chatting as we play through Slay the Spire. I'll
Yes.
probably be streaming it again, although I do already own it on Switch. I'll probably just buy it again for PC to make streaming easier and then play through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be streaming again. I kind of stepped up to stream this month because Ruben was tired at work and had to play the game at the last minute.
Yep.
I don't think it's
Even
for
though I
me.
beat it before you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I didn't even have to stream Outer Wilds. Yeah, so I don't think I'll be doing streaming again. It's not for me, so I'll leave that in your court. But yeah, I probably will play it in the Discord a bit, like I did with FTL. I think that was a fun interactive thing.
Should
But
record your things and put them on the Doof Plays YouTube channel where all the VODs go.
maybe.
All right. All right, cool. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us, folks, and thanks for having a great time this month. I certainly had a great time reading all your spoiler posts.
Yeah, I think this was the most fun we've had as a community on our Discord going through a game. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do more community-based stuff for the game club, I think.
Yes.
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and actually it's worth noting, so next month there won't be a regular vote for which game, because it's Ruben's pick. So
yes,
we'll have more
but
news on that. Well, yeah. Oh,
should I tell people what I'm planning on doing now?
it's up to you.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 5. I really want us to do more games where we have kind of thematic groups to choose from. And so the one I've been planning to start off with is Australian indie games. So I'm going to pick 5 games that I'm nominating that are Aussie indie games, and we can vote between them. Probably smaller ones, games that people probably haven't heard of before, although you might have. I mean, Hollow Knight was an Australian indie game, so we started there.
Yeah.
But I'll pick some other ones and we can vote on them. There'll be different vibes, so we can choose based on whichever one you kind of vibe with.
Yeah, I'm quite excited for that. I agree. Themed votes is something we wanted to start doing once we, found our feet a bit more. And I think this is a great first one.
Yeah, cool. People want us to do Hollow Knight again. It won't be a choice, I'm afraid, because we did already play it. Maybe if what's the sequel called?
Silk Song.
Now. Silk Song. Maybe when Silk Song comes out, that'll be up there, of course.
I think, I don't even know if it's going to be worth holding a vote the month Silk Song comes out, because we all know that's going to win.
Yeah, that's going to win for sure.
That's a set in stone pick, I think.
Yeah. Cool. Anyway, thanks for joining us, folks. See you next time on the Doof Media Game Club.
Thanks, and we'll see you in a month. The 5th of September.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye.